Good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I hope you're all doing extraordinarily well. Got a special conversation for you. Just want to give everyone just a minute to get in. A lot of Mark love out there. Well, I will ask. I submitted for questions on Twitter. I will watch the chat for questions and try to take note of them. We're going to do a little bit of discussion for the first half, and then after that, I've put aside 10 questions from asking people what they want, and then I'll keep an eye out on chat once we get to the QA portion, and you guys can ask whatever you like. How does that sound? If I don't ask the real questions, I think you all can remember that. You know, it's been a while since Mark's been there, but he has been on some of the hella awesome projects out there. So he was a team lead on World of Warcraft when things really started changing, HQ producer for Diablo II, as well as a producer for StarCraft and StarCraft Brood War. I mean, you can have my webcam, but Mark is not in a spot to have a camera right now. All right, I think get your mobile phones out, and we're gonna welcome in Mark Kern live. Thanks for joining me, Mark.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's good to be here.
It's basically been confirmed that you are now going to be smeared across the industry for appearing here. Rest in peace. I'm sorry, bud.
Well, I got smeared pretty bad when I tried a neutral petition to bring game journalists and gamers together during the whole Gamergate controversy and the episode of CSI or whatever it was. So I'm used to that. I watch your stuff. I like your channel. I don't have a problem with it. And diverse politics is as important as diverse anything else.
Well, we're gonna get along just fine. So we as I told you earlier, I mostly know you from the aggressive naval pictures on Twitter, but I also know that you're kind of a guy that knows a lot about the ongoings in the industry, as well as I told chat before I grabbed you that you had been a team lead on World of Warcraft at a time when things really started changing at Blizzard, the HQ producer for Diablo II, and producer on StarCraft and StarCraft Brood War. And we talked a little bit about what was going on with the story on the Blizzard pay cuts, and that's, I guess, how we met.
Yeah, I basically saw your video and your tweet about the information you were getting from inside Blizzard, and I've been curious about how Blizzard has changed since I left after shipping WoW. I left 6 months after shipping World of Warcraft to start, my own company back then. And it sounds like a lot of things have changed, and just keeping in touch with friends too. That's I've heard some things, and just being around and visiting the offices. When I went to visit Mike, when I did the Nostarius petition, we talked a little bit about it too. But during the big stuff that was happening with WoW, that's really when the company changed. It went from a very boutique, very sort of. It was like we viewed ourselves as a luxury game brand, and then after WoW, it was more like a mass market megacorp game company, and it was two different views. And I was there for the transition there, and of course on the product that made that transition happen.
What was the biggest change at that time? Was it just a massive injection of new human capital? Because I assume you had to expand pretty rapidly.
Well, let's frame this a little bit. I think people now just think of Blizzard as this mega corporation, and it's always been that way. But during the time of StarCraft and during the time of Warcraft 3, we actually weren't that big. I mean, we were a very much appreciated brand in the industry. Some people would pick us out by our t shirts and stuff when we walked around, but it wasn't anywhere near the level of success or notoriety that post WoW. And during WoW, there was every bit. It was a make it or break it thing. We were very afraid that this would be the last game that Blizzard made and it would bankrupt the company. So that was the real cusp of the company's evolution.
And so when it became a success, how would you describe the corporate culture changing as like as an employee?
I think that after WoW, we did grow during WoW. We had to staff up immensely, and I was deeply involved with staffing up a lot of Blizzard at the time. So I can comment on some of the stuff you've heard about. Uh, but in terms of how it changed, I mean the company we went to thousands of employees, and that's a huge growth to manage. And things really did change. Stuff got more compartmentalized. It used to be that you could come in. I reported directly to Mike Morheim. I was a team lead. I reported direct to Mike. So, but people could still come to me. People could sit in my office and talk my ear off about what they didn't like, what was happening with this or that, and we would have very robust conversations. That doesn't happen anymore, and that changed after Blizzard grew. Key execs are actually on a separate floor. There is key card access to them. It's very hard to meet one on one with them. So that open door policy went away. And when I said before that I think Blizzard had sort of lost touch with gaming, I think that it's not only with gamers, but also with the rank and file of Blizzard who are gamers. And I think that that's a really dangerous part in your any company culture is when you grow that big, how do you stay in touch with not just your customers, but also your developers?
Yeah, I imagine that would create some resentment with some people, especially the people that were around before the change. I suppose people coming in now, this is just the new uh, norm. This is all they know, so it's not a big deal. But people that were left around before probably um, didn't like it. Now, that's probably a good assumption into, or a good segue into what kind of started all this was um, a a I'll say what's the word I'm looking for? Off the cuff rant by Brevik about certain situations that were going on at about the pay at Blizzard, and a few people had reached out to mirror that. Since then, a lot more information has come in, which we'll talk about. But the initial take was that they just slashed everybody, like the pay and everything like that. And you have more insight into that and what that pretty much looks like. And so maybe if you want to correct that or provide your insight on that.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here, but some of the things specifically that he talked about, and like I told you, I read about the video. I didn't actually view the video because I didn't want to see Brevik, in the middle of a rant. That's not the Brevik I know. And people have their moments, and this
I
happened to get
certainly know
out. It was
that.
out.
Yeah.
So, but I did ask a lot of people what he said in the video, and some of it didn't seem right to me. Like, let's talk specifically about compensation. Blizzard's always been very pro compensation. And I know it's strange to talk about now, and maybe it's changed. But when I was there, we definitely were very concerned with uh, people getting paid and attracting as the best talent we could. So what Brevik's talking about is when at a time in the company where we had your base salary, you have the Christmas bonus, which was at that time, I believe, 10% of your salary.
That was a
And then you
max, right? Max 10% of your salary,
max
not
10% of your
guaranteed.
salary.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And it would be a lump sum at Christmas. And then what you had was a royalty program, which is very important. And many top developers have this, where there is profit sharing in the company itself. And specifically on the titles, not just the titles you're working on, this is global. So they didn't want to pit teams against each other. So they didn't want, poaching of talent between teams. So they made it a universal royalty pool for everybody. And I think that's a huge part of Blizzard's success in attracting and retaining great talent. And I think to hear Brevik say that it went away or was going away or was being severely cut was of great concern to me. I think I said that would be the litmus test. If the royalty program ever went away, that's when you know Activision's in control.
Yeah, there seems to be, myself included, an assumption that, well, Activision came in and now all of this stuff started. And I can share now, that we're talking, and I've shared this. I think I've shared a couple pieces with you that Blizzard employees have reached out to say, well, no, it's actually been a little bit longer. It really didn't just change overnight when Activision came in. So it's tough to know what exactly is true. And, if odds are I'm only going to hear from the disgruntled employees. Like, I understand that. There are people, everybody that reached out had something very nice to say about the people. Nothing like, negative about certain people, but they did talk a lot about the daily struggle of what it was like to live there and work there, and to lose the bonus wasn't great, but it sounds like it didn't really affect that many people.
Yeah, well, maybe we should go through it step by step. I think the biggest news that I heard officially that was in a press release with Mike stepping down and in an investor call was that the Christmas bonus was no longer, that Mike wasn't going to get his Christmas bonus. That's a weird thing to say in a press release for a CEO leaving, but I guess when the Christmas bonus is as large as a Blizzard CEO, the shareholders want to know what happens to
Yeah,
it.
I saw something like $750,000 thrown around, so it's probably a relevant number.
But but when I read it, I was initially outraged because the way the article was written by this journalist made it sound like it was axed, and it was they spun it in such a way, and that I was immediately like upset, and I was like, how could they do that? But then I reread it carefully, and I had to delete my original tweet because what had happened was that 10% Christmas bonus, instead of doing it as a bonus at Christmas time, which gets taxed a lot, what they did was they rolled it into base pay and increased base pay over that time. So that made me feel a lot better. I believe that is not an issue, and maybe you've got more information from current employees, but I'd be really curious to know if people were happy with that change.
Yeah, well, one of the questions you asked me to pose, so I mentioned once we said that so everyone out there knows what's going on, so there's no inside baseball, so to speak. When we agreed to speak, I sent you a few things so that we could have more than just superficial conversations. So I asked you, hey, is there anything you want me to ask my sources? And one of the people did reply when I asked, did they adjust the royalty program to be less based on the duration and more fair for newcomers? For example, is the royalty program still a good deal, just more fair for everyone? And their answer was yes. The goal was to be more fair to newcomers, and overall, it's a better deal for everyone. When my friends talk about it, some of the more senior dudes in terms of wizards, in terms of time spent at the company, had to downsize their lifestyles. So it sounds like maybe a lot of people referred to old Blizzard. I'm assuming that's just people who had been there for a long time. Old Blizzard money.
I would say that is pre-WoW or WoW launch.
Yeah, yeah. That they had to tighten their belts, so to speak, just because, I get it. I see it. It's not just a video games industry thing. It's like when you get, everything's going good for a business. I worked for a company that we grew from 8 million to 35 million in 2 years. And we like bought a building and, everyone, I was getting huge bonuses. And then 3 years later, we were back down to like 6 million. Now it was still fine, but we had to do layoffs and we had to do, so I mean, if you keep living large like that, you run into problems. So they probably did, you know, the long term thing.
Maybe it was a long term thing. Maybe it was just, I think it was to be more fair, actually, because, I don't know what Blizzard's revenues are now. I haven't looked at the earnings report. I know that some of it's publicly available, but I think what you're seeing is that you can have a profit sharing program even in as a company gets larger as long as the revenue is there, right? Because you don't just it's not usually a flat percentage. It's usually X amount reserved off EBITDA, and then that gets divided into a
Oh man, it's been a
pool, and
while since
there's
I've heard about EBIT.
sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
we're
no, no. I mean,
you know
yeah, that's some deep lore.
So yeah, so the way the system is set up is you can set up a system to scale, and Blizzard would tune it. But I think what was happening was, as you have more and more employees, you do have to reach deeper into the corporate coffers for that. And what was happening was old Blizzard, senior Blizzard, it was based on, you and I talked about this. It was based on duration of your tenure there. And that wasn't fair to some people who were in higher positions who hadn't been there as long, maybe contributing more to the product for just for the sake of their role, if nothing else, and not making the same. So what initially sounded like the sky is falling thing from Brevik has now sort of morphed into this as we got more information. Hey, no, this is more of like a plan that's fair and doesn't put high level managers out of sync with long term senior staff.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to not. A lot of people will hear the numbers like, oh, these people make 70K, and people hear that and it sounds like a lot of money. For example, if I throw that number out there, like but it's you got to keep in perspective the cost of living where they are too, which seems to be a real issue. And one thing that you were concerned about when we talked about it was people talking about employees living in communes, 4 or 5 people to an apartment, and things like that. And I did follow up with some of the people uh, that we talked about, and you said, hey, who is it exactly that's living in communes, and are we talking about living in a 4,000 square foot house with an in-ground pool with 5 people, or are we talking about 4 people living in a efficiency? And one of the replies said, I asked similar question like that. They wrote, mainly it's QA and support who are the spiritual backbone of this company. I wonder where they work and represent the actual player base. Every single one of them does it purely for love. Now, again, this is just one person's opinion. Uh, when I was working on D3, it wasn't uncommon for me to get 5 to 10 emails a week as we neared shipping from QA, people warning me, often vociferously, that the game sucked and it's a business that's hard to pay everyone exorbitant wages. So they moved a bunch of those types of jobs outside of California, which sucks because they're the first line of defense to warn developers when something sucks. And anyway, I don't know a single person in dev who drives Uber or Lyft on the side. Why should they? A competent artist or engineer, you can work contract jobs for up to $45 an hour up. I assume they mean like freelance work. Is that probably what they mean?
Yeah, technically you're not allowed to moonlight at Blizzard, but but QA and support have always had it tough. I mean, let's talk about that. There's a clear separation between the situation for developers who are making the game and the situation for call center reps and quality assurance. And it was tough back when we were doing WoW. I can only imagine that it's super tough now because of the increased cost of living in Orange County. But I think we were right when we chatted about this. I was like, hey, we should look into this because there is a clear separation here, And it's not like developers are having to take second jobs, in order to make great games. That's not true. But QA and support, that's a tough problem. That's a tough problem because you're paying call center wages, but you're in one of the most expensive counties in the country. And it's like living in New York City. I know high-end lawyers that can't afford a house in New York City, right?
Yeah,
They've got to rent an apartment.
funny thing is I ran a call center here in Wisconsin too. And like we used to laugh about call centers in California. Like we were like, how do they afford it? You can only pay so much in a call center. There's only, you might here in the Midwest, call center agent type person might make 30,000 would be a lot. As with maybe some incentives to have bonuses and things like that, depending on performance. But I can't imagine what it's like to live in California and make that.
Yeah, it's real tough, but you know what? QA is where a lot of great feedback. QA, we used to say at Blizzard, QA is always the first to know if our game is fucked.
Yeah, yeah, that
And I
makes
don't
sense.
just mean I don't mean from a bug perspective. I mean from outside because they're kind of like outside looking in. Is your gameplay screwed up? Is it fun? Is it not fun? Is something wrong fundamentally with the product? So I can see why Blizzard wanted to keep QA close, but then how do you keep QA close and then justify to shareholders and everybody else why you're paying them dev salaries for QA? But let's look at that a little closer. The QA jobs at Blizzard, we would hire anybody without prior experience as long as they were passionate gamers and could speak and analyze well about not just bugs but gameplay issues and things like this. And we would aggressively recruit from QA into development back then. A lot of the WoW team, especially the entire outdoor level design team, was from QA and support. We would go to them first, and game designers too. A lot of game designers came from QA and support. Kevin Jordan came from there. So we had this path. I don't know if that's true anymore, but it definitely was the sort of thing where we were. It was a conduit, and you could find opportunities on dev teams.
Yeah, it seems like that's just the pipeline that you have, right? I mean, it's easier to bring somebody in who can make a difference right now, and then pick from that team once they absorb the culture. And we made it's like when you sell cars. Not, I guess I used to sell cars when I got out of college. It was everyone sold cars. Everyone, I didn't care. I was a manager. It didn't matter. You walked a lot on Saturdays. You worked, and it was just like, and then you earned your keep from there. And it was just easier to hire general salespeople or general service people, and then promote from within, as opposed to always looking for high level people.
Oh yeah, and QA is that email's right. QA is a lot of the heart of Blizzard. I don't. I think that email may be overstating it a bit because the devs contribute obviously a lot to the heart
It
of
sounds
Blizzard.
like that.
I mean,
It sounds like whoever wrote this was a QA or support agent. So I get it.
but at the same time, at least when I was there, the way we looked at QA was they are the first line to tell us if something's wrong, because you're so heads down in the project you can't see your own game sometimes, and so we were always looking at what QA was saying about our game. So, but yeah, I mean, in terms of these communes, first of all, let me say that what Blizzard actually does, because there's a question about wow, or is Blizzard forcing people to live in vans? Blizzard has negotiated great leasing prices all throughout Orange County at luxury apartments and down for employees to get good deals on housing here. And they're not homes because it's hard to own a home in Orange County, but they do make a widespread effort to make housing more affordable because they know it's an issue, and it's been an issue for a long time. It's just gotten worse and worse. But and also what I pointed out to you before was like, hey, it's not uncommon for people in California and the coastal cities, expensive places to live, especially when they're entry level in their career, to band together as roommates and go into a place together. Now that said, I don't know, what these places are like that QA and support are banding together. They say it's in Costa Mesa. Costa Mesa is a cheaper part of town. How bad is it? I don't know, but I can imagine it's pretty tough. And maybe Blizzard does need to look at that sector of their company and figure out how to make life easier if they want to keep that close relationship, if they want to keep that pipeline where we got some of our best level designers and designers and feedback of the game. They should definitely address that part of the company.
Yeah, let me I have to just quick get some signs or super chats people put up, or take me 1 second. SpongeBob, if you punched a feminist in Red Dead Redemption 2, say aye. I haven't met the feminist yet, but okay. LMP3, Diablo Immortal Game of the Year. Well, I don't know. We'll see how that shakes out. Prowling Wolf, please return WoW back to a state of difficulty. I've been a subscriber since 2008, and the game I fell in love with is no longer there. Ooh, what do you think about that, Mark?
The game, which game?
World of Warcraft?
Oh,
Sounds like he's saying it's
oh.
easy now or something.
We're talking about retail. We're talking about retail versus class.
Yeah, get on WoW Classic, boys. That's where it's at.
you know, um, here's what happened with WoW, right? And some of this I know, and some of this is just pure speculation, knowledge about the industry, and knowledge about what I know about the product. When you launch WoW, it's to a dedicated core of gamers. Remember, WoW was aimed at the Blizzard brand, the high-end boutique gamer brand back then, smaller market, not the casual market. What happens to any MMO after you launch it? Something called churn. You guys know what churn is?
You might as well go through it, but I do, yeah. But go ahead.
So what churn is the number of players that leave every month and the number of players that come in. And as you start to exhaust content, churn increases and you start shrinking your player base. But you've got a hit game. So the rest is conjecture, right? It's like this happens to any MMO, but what I assume is happening is that, Blizzard had to keep growing WoW. You can't show that you've got a player base of core gamers and then it diminishes and then spikes during expansion and then keeps sliding down and down. You want to, if you got a hit game, you're going to get a lot of pressure from the board of directors. And believe me, I had to present to the board of directors of Vivendi, not just Activision Blizzard, but the owners at the time. There's a lot of pressure to grow that game. And so what are you going to do? You're going to reach for bigger markets. You're going to reach for the more casual gamer because you have no other choice. And so the game has to be simplified. The game has to be streamlined in order to reach those markets, and that's the path you're on. And it's okay, but it results in a different type of game.
Yeah, and oh, hold on 1 second. It's if I can, instead of just doing a huge QA session, that is one of the QA questions that I have set aside for you. Would you mind if I pose that now, because I think that's an interesting question. So if you were still team lead at WoW or at Blizzard, how would you balance pleasing the customers and pleasing the shareholders at the same time? And then I asked, was that even part of your role? Because I'm not sure what a lead would have to do. But now you've just said that you had to present, so now I know you can answer this question.
Yeah, it was definitely, well, we've always tried. Okay, so the guiding philosophy at Blizzard up until the point I left was deliver maximum value to the gamer and make good business decisions to go along with it. But the priority, because if you don't make good business decisions, you don't get to make the games. But it was gamers first, and then what's the smart decision? And we also, Alan Adham used to say, don't be too greedy. Don't sacrifice, too much on the game side for the sake of profitability. Alan says this. Alan's still there at the company. So that gives me a lot of hope, right? Because he founded the company along with Mike and Frank, and he's there right now. So that is like a window of hope right there. So, but what I would do is exactly what they're doing now, and exactly what I told Mike in the meeting for getting classic WoW back. I said, listen, Mike, you've got a split audience with WoW, and they're both valid audiences, but they would reinforce each other in popularity and reinvigorate WoW if you did classic WoW. You would bring people in, and they would stick around. You've got maybe 4 million plus classic WoW players, and the rest of them are, the retail players. You can have both. So I think what I would do is I would be pretty aggressive, more aggressive than I've seen so far with classic WoW, to appeal to the that core base of original Blizzard fans, while also having this streamlined product for the mass market.
Yeah, that's a tough balance. I mean, I think the purist in me thinks that if you're designing a great game, then the money is like it just comes with it, right? Like, uh, but I suppose there are, I kind of get in my head, I get this vision of like somebody rubbing their hands together and like be like, hey, how can I add this and make more money for a game? But it is fair to say, like, well, if you make a crap game, then no one's gonna play it anyway. And then last off the cuff question, and then we'll go back to the other conversation. I just thought it'd be fun to break it up. What'd you think of that Diablo Immortal? I see in chat as like bringing up Immortal a lot. What'd you think of the Diablo Immortal rollout? Not necessarily like people's reaction to it, but what was your reaction to
It just made sense to make a mobile game out of Diablo because it would be a good form factor for it. The controls would port sufficiently over, but I said this in my tweet thread about it. There's nothing wrong with a PC with port. No, sorry, there's nothing wrong with a mobile version of Diablo. What you're seeing here is a massive PR blunder that shows me that upper management at Blizzard has lost the pulse of a gamer that helped drive them to success. And you need both. You need the gamer that brought you there, and you need the new gamers you're trying to reach. And I think my worry is that there's an isolation here. There's a loss of touch, and that needs to be corrected immediately. This was a huge, huge PR blunder by Blizzard.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I think if you take it out of BlizzCon and you have just this thing to announce, maybe it's at E3 or whatever, you look at it and you're like, okay, that's not for me. But when you play a game that is so large, having more people in the like, there's no denying that it will funnel people into Diablo. Like, there's gonna be some percentage of people that play Diablo Immortal, however terrible it is or isn't, and come to play Diablo, which will be a good thing. But they really, the idea to roll it out at BlizzCon, not smart. And then the knee jerk reaction of the crowd, the do you not have phones? That didn't go well either.
Well, it's a pattern, right? This is the concerning thing. This isn't their first PR blunder. The one prior that where I got involved was when Jay Allen Brack said, you think you do, but you don't, about classic WoW.
Oh yeah, that was brutal.
I scribbled that on top of the box of the petitions that I printed out that of players wanting classic WoW when I went to visit Mike, and they kept those boxes. Mike said that he was gonna save them. So that is, if it's one incident, that's one thing. But if you have this incident repeat, then maybe there's something wrong with your upper management culture. Maybe something's going on there. Maybe the egos have gotten too big. They were big to begin with. Don't get me wrong. Even when Blizzard was smaller, very big egos. But I think what we're seeing is a disturbing pattern, because if you get out of touch with gamers, how are you going to continue to deliver the experiences that they want?
Yeah, I think the bigger picture is exactly how you put it. I mean, you're at BlizzCon. What do you think about the? It's my opinion that this whole, well, they were going to announce Diablo 4 but backed out. That was floated through Schreier at Kotaku or whatever. That in my opinion, that was done on purpose to kind of calm everyone down. But what do you think, in your opinion? You think they were going to announce Diablo 4 and then they just backed out, or that it was maybe just a cleanup or a placation move afterwards?
I don't think that they planned on it at all. I think that they went in, mobile first, and can I say something else about Diablo Mobile?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Nothing wrong with Diablo Mobile as a game. It's the monetization. If they go the path, and we could talk about that a little bit later, but I just want to throw that qualifier out because I see in chat some people are saying, "How can you defend Diablo
By the
Mobile?"
way, I
I'm like,
think people are really having a good time, and this is the biggest live stream I've ever done. 3,400 people here right now, so I do want to thank everyone for being here, and thank you, Mark, for being here. And if you're not following him on Twitter, if you use Twitter, his handle's in the description as well as on the video. So this has been really interesting. So I appreciate that. Sorry to derail you, but I am
no,
wholesome after all, so I have to continue being that. So
I'm looking at the numbers, and we've got a lot of viewers here, and I'm really grateful too for everyone showing up. And it's not often that we can have frank discussions about this. And I'm being careful. Obviously, there's stuff I know that I can't talk about, but it's not impacting my opinion here. You're getting, my straight view based on what I know internally and externally through observations that everybody else has made. So, but yeah, I think we were talking about you know the monetization for Diablo on mobile, and we don't know anything about that yet. And the leak significant? I don't think that leak was real. I don't think they plan to do anything Diablo 4. I think they do plan now to reveal their hand on PC stuff just as soon as they can get the announcement materials to a quality level sufficiently high to meet Blizzard standards. That would be the damage control that I would propose if I was still in the room in those meetings. I'd be like, you know what? We fucked up, and at Blizzard we fuck up, but we're really good at response. Like we used to say that. It's like, Blizzard will have, we'll run hard and fast, but as soon as someone gets run over at an intersection, we'll put up a stop sign real quick. So there's probably some emergency meetings. And as a bigger company, it's probably slower, but you will see stuff about PC come out afterwards. There is one more interesting thing. I saw Alan Adham's panel right after the flubbed announcement. And from what I know about Alan's demeanor, what you were seeing from Alan was not happy Alan at all.
you didn't
That
look happy.
no, that is cold, angry Alan, and I don't know why, but he was upset, and probably because there was a misjudgment there. I don't know whose judgment call it was, but he wanted to assure everybody that the future is bright. He said that 3 or 4 times. I think he's got some good games in the works. I hope, and I hope that we see a reveal of that very soon.
Yeah, I saw the after. I did a video. I think I can't even remember now. When you do them every day, and sometimes a couple of days you forget. But the shareholder meetings was a little different. But even then, he was like, I think if you're those guys, you had to know that the crowd wasn't. I read their eyes as almost being like, I told them. Like I knew this would happen, kind of thing. Like he didn't even seem that excited about pitching it, but hey, it's your job. You got to do your job. But also, I didn't really buy that he was exactly super excited about it.
Yeah,
Maybe he was.
uh,
There was some people said that the
I'm sorry.
guy. Did we talk about that? That there was somebody either emailed me or they were talking in their video, but it got around that he wanted a break from the development cycles in Diablo, like the 10-year development cycles, and so putting him on like a mobile project kind of made sense. And I don't know. I don't know if there's anything true to that.
Well, Blizzard will often, for its top talent, allow them to pursue projects like that. I mean, so that could be true, but I know a lot of people. I'm watching. I got distracted by the chat flowing by. It's going by so fast, and there's a couple people out there who don't know me that say that I'm shilling for Blizzard, which is
Yeah,
really
yeah.
interesting.
I just typed in there like just so everyone
If
knows, Mark is not, in my opinion, a shill, and he also does not currently work for Blizzard, so he has no reason to be dishonest. So if people want me to ask
you,
a specific question, I'm watching.
you hear me taking kind of a moderate stance, but if you read my tweet thread on Diablo Immortal, you will know that I was vastly critical of Blizzard in that. And I am worried about Blizzard. I'm skeptical about Blizzard. I am worried about them. I'm defending sort of like the Blizzard as it was. I don't know how it is now, but back then, during the WoW period, uh, devs were treated very well, and we had problems. We had some big problems too. But what we're seeing now is a worrying trend, a trend that I'm worrying about, that you're worrying about, that a lot of gamers are worrying about. And let's talk about the things we don't like, or I don't like about Blizzard.
Sure,
I don't like.
let's dispel the shill of moniker.
Let's put this to rest. Okay, here's where Blizzard is screwing up. All right, so not only is there a pattern of being out of touch with gamers and being so arrogant that they think that upper management, and I'm talking about upper management, I'm not talking about in the trench devs or anything else, who are separated from upper management, physically separated by key carded doors where they, the communication, I can imagine, is just very poor compared to where it once was. The repeated PR blunders, starting with you think you do, but you don't, all the way to do you have phones, is a repeating pattern that's very concerning. The monetization on mobile, if they have to go that way where they're doing, okay, if they start charging for power on phones, it's over. That is the worst thing you can do for gamers. And the other thing is, I don't even like the way RNG loot boxes work for cosmetics in Overwatch. I mean, I've done RNG in a game before. I don't like the way it fundamentally alters your game design to sort of like lead you down that path, especially if you're selling power. But I don't even like RNG loot boxes for cosmetics. I think we need to get away from these sort of predatory type monetization schemes and get back to getting the value. Where's the value? Blizzard used to say, where's the gamer value? Deliver a ton of value to the gamer, then make the business decision secondary, but still be smart in business so you can stay in business.
Well said. There's a couple of specific questions that came in. I want to ask you if that's okay, and then we'll get back on the. I think I opened up the Q&A early, and people are really eager to ask you questions, and they're paying money to do so. So, damn it, it's Spanish. I can't. Entaro Tassadar, Entaro Old Blizzard. I don't know what that means. Sorry. I miss Old Blizzard, maybe.
It's Protoss. It's all right.
Oh, okay. Magana Company. Why do employees treat everyone poorly at Blizzard? I think we hit that. Spire Animations. Why do you? What do you think we can do, Mark, to depoliticize games? Oh, this is a deep question. We'll come back to it. And take power away from certain journalists who conveniently call themselves gamers. I want to come back to that
good
one. Because
yeah, let's hold that for, that's a topic in itself.
Yeah, that one is near and dear to my heart too. Blitzkrieg, WoW is now $15 a month loot box that you have to kill. Oh, that you have to kill. Then you're forced to wait another week to kill the loot box once it resets, aka Titan Forging. Ooh. Slave Life Gamers First make Blizz great again. I like that. Michael Peckham for $10. Mark, a lot of people are really upset with the story right now of WoW and feel Blizzard has dropped the ball in comparison to stories they used to tell, like Warcraft 3. Do you have any idea why?
Yeah, Metzen's gone. Come on.
There you go. See, you're getting the straight answer right there.
All right. So let me tell you about Blizzard storytelling. So I went in there when I first started at Blizzard. It was I was a producer on StarCraft. I came late to the team, last 6 months before we shipped. It was my favorite project to work on. It was a huge bonding time. We would work late. We would play Magic, and we would play Legend of Five Rings at night, and then we go right back to work. We didn't sleep, and we really had a great bonding experience. But during that time, I worked with Metzen a lot because I was it was my first job at Blizzard, and I'm sitting here, I'm responsible for all the front end glue screens and also editing all of his stuff. I was, and we were working on a Japanese RPG together called that was being outsourced, and we were working on a little bit of the story plots for that. Metzen has so much soul, has so much passion for story, you would not believe it. And at first, I didn't quite get it because we came from different story backgrounds. I kind of come from high fantasy. It's like, oh, I would love to make a Lord of the Rings stuff. And he comes from comic books, right? He's like, no, it's like, we just have to have, it's got to be mighty and epic. And these were his words, mighty and epic. And it was so much of a meme during WoW that we used to say, "Oh, this level needs more mitosity," or the epicity level is a little bit off here. We need to increase it, because he would come in and very passionately do the story, and he was great because he would come out and he would pitch the story ideas to us and to the level designers directly. He would just go out there and say, "I'm thinking about doing this," and then we're going to put horns on them, and we're going to do this and that. And what do you guys think? And there was actually back and forth, but he was the guiding light for that story. And I think he understood how to deliver a story that was passionate and impactful and true to the characters in his mind. And and I'm not saying that the current writers aren't any good, but there's a reality that you have a staff of writers now. And when you have a staff of writers and the spiritual guide for the lore in the first place isn't there anymore, people are going to want to take it in different directions. People are going to, and maybe different writing leads are going to want to take it in different directions. And one thing I can tell you, based off what people leaving Blizzard have told me, is things have gotten extremely political inside the company, where it wasn't political before, at least not to the degree that I'm hearing about. But what I'm hearing now is that I can suspect that you can have some infighting, and in fact, I know there's some infighting. Maybe that's happened to the story. I don't know. I haven't heard anything specifically about the story, but if you've got,
Of course it has, right? I mean, I think that's a super safe assumption, you know?
yeah, but if the main creative wellspring of your lore is gone, and you have a huge writing staff, and they all want to make their own mark on it, you're gonna get some tussling until the story falls out into a unified direction again, until somebody emerges to re-lead it into a direction.
Well, that's why you kind of need you do have to have that creative kind of soul that in a way will take the reins. We see this kind of with Wizards of the Coast and their storytelling, which is kind of garbo nowadays. But let me quick grab these other ones. Quartering, if you're in Milwaukee, come to MATC room. I'm not gonna. All right, room M154. We are having games. Blizzard Rep will be coming soon. Well, you can buy me a beer. I'll tell you that much. Vicious Victor says it's interesting to hear the churn description and business models. Not ever a WoW player. Love StarCraft games, but I was a big Destiny player. Do you see or feel parallels? What do you think about that?
So I never played Destiny 1. I bought it. I didn't much care for it. And then I bought Destiny 2, and I really didn't like Destiny 2. And then the expansion came out. The Forsaken expansion came out, and now I'm playing all the time. And I'm playing with my kids, and I really do enjoy the game now. And I've seen the earnings report where they say that Destiny, the Forsaken revenue, is not where they want it to be. Let's put a little color on that. So, what do they mean? What do business people mean when they say revenue is not meeting expectations? Do they mean the game is losing money? Not necessarily. If the game's losing money, then they say something else. Four-letter words in the boardroom.
Yes, right, right.
But what they mean is that they are comparing themselves with EA. They are comparing themselves with Tencent. They are comparing themselves. They are asking, for every dollar we put in, are we getting maximum revenue out, or are we only doing half the revenue Tencent's doing for a game that costs half as much to make? And
do you think it sounds like you watch earnings. Have you noticed, is this a yearly thing? But it looks like both EA and Activision are really headed in the wrong direction right now in terms of stock prices. Is this a normal thing for this time of year, or is this a market reaction to all that?
No, something's going on in the sector. All game industries are
Tech
hit.
is getting crushed right now. Yeah.
And I heard tech overall as a sector is getting crushed. No, I don't follow stocks, but of course, as having been a CEO and everything else, I do have to know about this stuff. And following the game industry earlier, I would say that what you're seeing is unusual. That we are in an overall tech stock slump, and it appears that games are getting hit hard too. What might be contributing factors there are the fact that China is starting to propose some pretty stringent regulations. There's different governments are shutting down on loot boxes, which affect mobile games heavily. Maybe what we're seeing is investors saying, "Hey, there's government uncertainty. Let's pull back and wait and see what happens," because China is a huge market for games, and it affects so many people. So, maybe that's what we're seeing. It's hard to say.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Let me let me quit. Do you guys not have key cards? That's a good meme. The Deadeye guy Mark, has been great following you on Twitter. Thanks for being part of the old guard and sticking up for gaming enthusiasts. Thank you for classic. Wow. Wow, there's a wholesome comment. Diego Flores, would you call the fiasco of Dawn of War 3 as a cautionary tale for Blizzard as to not forget their core audience? I would assume that's a cautionary tale for everybody. Jake the Dev for $20. Thank you. Diablo Immortal represents a disconnect between large AAA companies and hardcore player base. Come to me, my people. I shall develop your passionate indie games. Also, quartering, come to MATC. Okay, all right. Appreciate that. I think Mark agreed with that. Neko Dolan for 2,000 Huff. I don't know what that is. It's somewhere around $10, maybe. Appreciate that. Mark, what do you think of the story of SC2?
No, it's just a confession. I couldn't make it through the campaign of SC2 because I hit a level that I would have rejected, and so I dropped StarCraft after that. StarCraft was my favorite game to work on, StarCraft 1, but when StarCraft 2 first came out, and I gave that a shot, I hit a level where I was like, I would have never shipped this, and I started to wonder what was going on. So I can't say that I'm an expert on StarCraft story anymore. It has evolved far beyond the time that I was there, so I can't really. Unfortunately, I have nothing meaningful to say about it.
Confirmed, not shill. Hi, did the team realize how important PvP would become? Oh, this is a good one. Would become in Diablo 2, and that an entire economy would be built around that community, i.e., D2 JSP.
No, we had no idea that PvP in D2 was going to be big. There were Diablo 2 was a nightmare development. I have to be frank with you. It was taking a long time. There were a ton of bugs. I was on the strike team for that, and we were pulling our hair out, and we were just trying to make it all work. It was nearly a disaster, and we had to redo a bunch of things. We were arguing with Blizzard North all the time. It's like you hear about Star Trek, right? It's like the cast didn't get along, and yet they made a great show. Diablo 2 was like that. Like that was the start of the real schism between Blizzard North and Blizzard South. And that was a tense time. But I think all of us looking back realized that we were younger, more hot-headed, very passionate, and we all had something to prove. The end result is we made a great game, and that's all that counts. And we get along now. So
yeah, it's funny how that the PvP thing is for me too. Like I can people I tell people that I was one of those people. I had to be. I don't know how common this style of play was for World of Warcraft, but I didn't even buy a mount. Like I was like a level 40 and I never used a mount. I never did PvP. I just walked around and like killed stuff. And so the idea that I never even knew or cared about PvP, but then all of a sudden it kind of became this big thing, and I started watching people. They were the big streamers, people that would do PvP, and it was interesting.
Oh, you mean you mean in WoW? Okay.
Yeah. I mean in WoW. Yeah, original. Yeah, Oh yeah, sorry. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk. Okay, that's a completely different question. Yeah, we knew PvP was going to be important.
No, his question was asked. His question was Diablo 2. I was just speaking to my experience with PvP. I've never been into it, but I think I'm in the minority.
I'm definitely more of a PvE player myself, but I find myself starting to like PvP more and more. Maybe because my son is very competitive and likes that part of the game.
You like to check him every once in a while, just remember where he came from.
I can't keep up with him. I mean, he was just shy of Diamond in Overwatch, and then he went to Fortnite because his friends went there, and he's like top 2% there on their tracking sites. So he's been playing shooters since he was 3, helping me out. I had him in my lap playing, Half-Life 2, and then he was helping me out on Firefall and playing that. So he is way, way beyond me now. It's basically he's really good, and that's good because then we always wanted those types of players at Blizzard. They would be our go-to people for exploits. So it's like,
Oh
hey,
yeah,
how
sure.
how do we break this? Or in PvP, you need a certain very specific design set for that, or design feedback for that. But in WoW, yeah, we knew PvP was going to be important, but we didn't think that say PvP servers were going to be that popular. We were worried about people feeling ganked all the time and everything else. So we were shocked when PvP, and I don't mean battlegrounds, but PvP servers, when we released them, we had to increase the number of PvP servers because they were so popular. That did take us by surprise.
Do you think there's anything, and I know you're not there anymore, but I'm just curious what your take is, that there's pressure because Overwatch isn't Fortnite, so to speak, internally.
Oh, I think they're in trouble. I think
Okay,
they're
all right. Yeah.
look, if I'm looking at it with my business hat on, here's the problem with Overwatch. Fortnite stole their lunch money. Okay, Overwatch was king of the hill. It was the shooter to play out there, the competitive shooter. And Blizzard was going out and getting teams to pony up, what is it, $2 million per
Yeah.
franchise,
Yeah.
to buy into this, because everyone's expecting the big bucks. It's like, yeah, I'll pay $2 million to start a team because we're
All
going to
these
make more
NBA
than that.
players were buying in too.
Yeah, and so what happens is you get all these people buying in, and then some unknown genre of game that wasn't big before suddenly comes in and steals your lunch. This happened to Blizzard twice, by the way. We missed the boat twice. But I'll talk about it. We missed the boat with Dota. Basically, we had internal numbers showing that the game type was super popular, more popular than any of our other game modes, and we didn't do anything about it. But in any case, until it was too late. And I think what you're seeing is that HOTS is not performing. Some people have said it's failed. Definitely in comparison to the other ones out there, it is a distant third. You're looking at Overwatch losing gobs of players to Fortnite, especially younger players. That is a huge problem. You're looking at WoW numbers being soft and the expansion not doing as well. You're looking at declining revenue in Hearthstone is the rumor, right? Like, I don't know if this is true,
Yeah.
but this is what I've heard. This is where, okay, so let's talk about corporate politics. When your division is not meeting expectations anymore, that is the time that the power players move in to try to eat you. It's a very dirty game at the top. When big money's involved, and CEOs are involved, you have to play hardball. So when Activision Blizzard merged, what was in my mind is one of two things is going to happen: either Blizzard eats Activision, or Activision eats Blizzard, because that's just always the way it goes. And in order for that to happen, one side has to show enough weakness for the other execs to move in. So this is a very vulnerable time for Blizzard. Blizzard, their flanks are exposed. This is critical. If I don't think Activision's in there yet, but if Activision is getting in there, now is the time.
Yeah, that's a very, very poignant, or I mean, a very smart point, because you have. I'm assuming. By the way, I remember talking about Blizzard as a Magic player and how Hearthstone ate Magic Online's lunch. I always felt like if Magic Online could have been like Arena 10 years ago, it wouldn't have been so easy for Hearthstone to come in and just bleed off anybody who wanted to play Magic Online. And I believe that, MTG Arena is just stillborn in my opinion. But it is interesting to see uh, this little stumble and how the industry is reacting. And it might explain a little bit of what people's attitudes are and how they're interacting with people.
Yeah, I think Blizzard's in the battle for their corporate life,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of identity.
What do you
So
think about?
Blizzard
Oh,
through
go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead.
Blizzard has been through more than one acquisition. I don't know if people know the history, but
The
Davidson and
company with
Associates bought Blizzard,
yeah,
and then David and Associates also bought Sierra Online, a couple other companies. Then Vivendi came in and bought them out, and then of course, now we have Activision Blizzard. And through every step of the way, Blizzard has carved out a fierce independence. We rejected HR from the corporate owners. We rejected IT departments. Normally, this stuff gets integrated once you're absorbed because Blizzard realized they wanted to maintain a full independent core, and that was the main thing. And the leverage for that was the revenue, was the gangbuster games and the gangbuster sales. So Blizzard had the weight, even though they were the small guy, to go in there and say, if you want it, it's got to be this way. And that's at threat now. That's really at threat now. So that is a big concern.
I wanna quick get these chats, but also then I want to go back to the sociopolitics thing because that is a near and dear topic. So I'm gonna quick go through these, and then if there's a specific question, we'll come back around to the end. This is yes or no. Did you work on the Warcraft episode of South Park?
No, that was after my time, but a good friend of mine, Joey Ray, went up and worked on that exclusively with them for a long time, and he's actually the role model for the hacker in the episode. So
Nice.
no, but
That's one
that
of my
that blew my
all-time
mind when
favorite
that
episodes.
episode aired. Yeah, just looking at that, I was like, wow, that's incredible.
The okay, AAA game companies will sell you recycled liberal politics infused mainstream shit by indie. Oh, Jake, I see you. Yeah, fight the globalists by buying indie games. Jake the Dev, good advertising. Heavy Metal Scythe. Do you think WoW will ever do WoW 2? I'm sorry, Blizzard will ever do WoW 2 to start over, or how about Warcraft 4?
We Okay, so is there going to be a Warcraft 4? I think RTS genres have gotten too small for Blizzard to support. Um, there's just not enough RTS players out there.
What
There's
if
enough
Command and
core.
Conquer goes crazy on the re-release?
You don't mean the mobile version?
No, no, they said they're
With
dropping
the,
they're redoing them in 4K. EA is.
well, okay. I mean, we've got StarCraft remastered. We're
Yeah,
getting
that's true. Yeah.
Warcraft 3 reforged. These things, I mean, they're still big. If we're talking about an independent studio, the sales would be phenomenal. But you're talking about Blizzard now, and Blizzard's so big that they have to sort of justify this stuff. So, that's super important to realize is that the RTS genre is too soft, I think, to support at this time a Warcraft 4. I could be wrong. I mean, they could come out with it. They could come out with expansions. That might be Blizzard's always been sort of good at supporting legacy games, but I don't think they're going to come out with a sequel. As far as a sequel for MMOs, when I was there, we would say it's wrong to do a sequel to an MMO. We looked at EQ2 versus EQ1 and how it sort of splits your player base, and we thought that was a bad strategic move back then.
Okay, good answer. Um, also, oh, okay, well, yeah, this is a fair
I
question.
did want to address, if you hold on to that question, I see some disinformation
Go ahead.
out there in chat. People are saying that I was fired from Blizzard. That is fake news. That's not true.
Well,
I
here
left
somebody
six
asked,
months
why did
after.
you leave Blizzard, and what are your thoughts on Bitcoin rewards and games? So why don't you, if you want to, you
Awesome.
can tell the tale.
Sure. So I left Blizzard 6 months after we shipped WoW to really take 2 months off because I didn't know what I wanted to do. For a long time, I thought I was going to do a basically a dating site. I
Right on,
said
right on.
I'm going to go into web development. Dating is a hot category. Let's do that. But I slept for 2 months because the crunch and burn on WoW was so intense. It was 2 years of crunch, and it really took a lot out of me. And I went in. I couldn't find anyone to hand in my resignation letter to. Mike was busy in meetings. I said, well, Mike's my boss, but about Paul Sands, so I just did it to HR. It's like, hey, sorry to give you some bad news, but I got to take off. I can't do this anymore. What caused me to leave was really two things. One is I came to Blizzard with what I said was my 5-year plan to learn how to make great games, and then go do it on my own. But it ended up being closer to 8 years, and I really loved my time there. But the change at WoW when we got corporate, the first signs were there. I'll tell you my personal experience because this is public information. I can talk about this. When they asked me to lay off so many people on the WoW team, they were doing a company-wide layoff. And I was
Was
there
this
and I
the
said,
famous 600 or 1200 it was?
I don't know how many it was back
Okay, sorry,
then,
somebody
but
mentioned
no,
that. Keep going. Yeah.
this is before then.
Oh,
This
okay.
is right after we shipped WoW. Okay, right after we had layoffs at the company, and I said we can't do this. I said I've been hiring these people, and I've been telling them that we're like family. We don't binge and purge hire. You know, yeah, we have some weak performers, but let's do it the right way. Let's do performance reviews. If they don't meet that, let's weed them out. You know, but we can't do this on the eve of shipping this game. And remember, nobody knew how WoW was going to do. Nobody knew it was going to be a gangbusters success. But at that moment, and I won't tell you who, this is a very closed door meeting with top executives at Blizzard. Very small meeting. We're talking about 4 or 5 people in the room. This person turned to me and said, "Well, guess what? We're a real business now." I said, "Oh,
Whoa.
I'm so fucking done."
Yeah.
I mean, I was already planning on eventually leaving and starting my own company, but right when that happened, right when I said the corporate culture is here, we are now fucking EA, and I was I'll admit it, I was angry. I was angry because these people poured their hearts out. The dev team worked so hard to ship what was the most important game for Blizzard, and yeah, we didn't know it was going to be a runaway success, but this was not the right timing or the way to do it. And they went over very poorly with the team. The layoffs went over extremely poorly. People were ranting in the parking lot. It was horribly done. And at that point, I was furious. And I felt that was the shift. That was the shift from the boutique, high end gaming company to the EA corporate size gaming company. And I saw the writing on the wall. I was planning on leaving anyways. That was the last straw. 6 months later, I was gone. I said, I can't do this.
I'll tell you what, it's we appear to be similar in age. You may be a little bit older than me because you have the blessing of the anti-aging genes. But I remember having to lay off people and when I was only I think 28, I had to lay off 60 people, and to this day, man, I can remember their faces. Like it was, and I quit that job within 12 months because I just couldn't come in anymore. I just couldn't. It was just so shitty. Um, that these
In,
people, like you said, you get in with these people, they are family, and at sometimes there are cuts that have to be made, but if you disagree with them, then it's just, I don't know, it's tough to deal
I,
with.
I understand if the company's on the ropes and you've got to do it, but it's so hard to do, and there was no good reason for this. There was no good reason for this because I believed in WoW. I believed that the product would be successful enough that we didn't have to do this, and obviously it turned out really well. And so, that was horrifying. And the next time I had to do it was when the Chinese owners uh, came into I'd sold my company to them, and they said, well, we want to do these layoffs, and I was like, oh no, not again. So that was, each time that happens, that makes me want to leave. Each time that happens, I'm like, this isn't right. I don't think we're in the financial situation that warrants it. I don't think you're sending the right message, and definitely with the timing of WoW, I thought that was very poorly done.
It's a
uh,
morale killer,
and,
yeah.
and the phrase, "Oh, we're a real business now. We're a real corporation." I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Wow, thanks for sharing that. And by the way, I'm gonna get to these messages, but I want to take an uninterrupted moment here, and I do want to talk about internal politics because um damn, Reginald, thank you. Jesus. So I often my perspective, if I can stump for myself a little bit here, is that oftentimes because I push so hard against like any politics coming out of game developers or really put into games that are at least one-sided, I guess I could say. I just don't like it in general. Now, you can make the argument that it can be done well, sure, but in general, I just don't want it, and I don't want it for my companies. I don't want my companies virtue signaling on Twitter. Like, I don't want to see International Men's Day tweets, and I don't want to see International Women's Day tweets. I don't want any of that because all it does is divide people. But now it appears, in my opinion, and probably anybody who's watching, is that this is just the way it is. Is there any putting this toothpaste back in the tube, or do you think that game companies now just are always going to have this inherently political environment and this is just business as usual?
Oh, well, you had a big push by a lot of people to insert politics into everything. These people are trying to, and you know what? Hey, you want to advocate for change? I get it. So, and they won to a degree that where they wanted to insert politics into everything in order to get their message across. And but to me, games should be a watering hole, right? You know how like you've got predators out of the safari, you got lion, but the lions and the zebras, they all drink from the same water, and when they do, they're not fighting each other, right? It's like, can't games and comics and novels and movies be our watering holes?
Yes,
And don't we
please.
don't we need that as a society to help bring our diverse viewpoints together, or at least be able to calm down and see eye to eye and disagree at other times? I mean, we need relief. We need escapism. We need entertainment, and we need that to be free of politics so that we can have rational conversations outside of our escapist media. So we can actually do this without it coming to violence. So we have a safety valve so we can blow off steam. You take that away, you insert politics in the game, you are being divisive. You are creating the problem. That's my viewpoint.
Yeah, I mean, you're preaching. I mean, this is exactly how I feel too. I mean, I've often said, look, I don't care. Like, I literally don't care what somebody's politics are. I mean, when we're playing, if we're talking about politics, okay. But also, this is not like how the real world works. I often talk about, like, I don't live in California. I live in the Midwest. But, I'll sit next to people that have five different political opinions, but we're all at the bar and we're all griping about, like, the same normie gripes. You can get along with people without having to talk about politics, and you can bond over other things. It's not the be all end all, but when you start having a take, I don't understand why anyone would divide their customer base like that. I mean, who is telling them this is good business? Like, Ben and Jerry's releasing resist ice cream, like Orange Man bad flavor. I just don't understand how we got here, and if there's any chance of it going away. I guess a company has to fold because of it, I suppose.
Well, I think so. My experience is that finding good people in marketing that are looking towards the future of marketing instead of the past is a rare thing. You have a ton, and I've interviewed top marketing execs from top game companies, and they are all stuck in the past. When I was doing Firefall and I was advocating, and we did huge Twitch streams with, and this is another topic, influencers, right? There weren't any real influencers when we started doing this, but we did pick people with popular audiences and we played Firefall with them on Twitch, right? And we did a set. And when we did YouTube, my marketing team, which was made up of old guard, high end EA staff, went ballistic. They started to badmouth the initiative like you would not believe through the whole company. And they didn't understand that YouTube and Twitch was where you were going to reach gamers, where you were going to sway them. We were really early on all that stuff. We were one of the first to go to 4K video because I said later on, YouTube's going to switch to 4K and we want our legacy stuff to look good. We still want that in high res. People told me 4K will never happen. And everyone was convinced. And so this is marketing mindset. So let's talk about how that applies to politics. It's like, okay, so now you have a marketing mindset that is entrenched in these large companies and does not understand the internet, does not understand social media. I had to have a crash course over the last 3 years in social media. I didn't really understand how it worked either. But what they see is as soon as something negative about the company goes viral on social media, they panic. They knee jerk. They go way the other direction, and they don't understand the Streisand effect. They don't understand how it hurts their core audience. And so they end up, firing people or doing these knee jerk responses that end up hurting the brand. And they want to tamp down so much on controversy because They don't understand that we're in a world where you can no longer avoid controversy, but they want to tamp down it so hard that they swing the opposite direction. Maybe if we virtue signal enough, none of these fires will ever happen again. And that is naive, short-sighted, and entrenched thinking, old school thinking that does not understand the internet.
Yeah, it's interesting that. So I actually, there was a social media guy that worked for GOG.com who ended up getting terminated for making a bad "you assume my gender" joke type of thing. He misused a hashtag, and it was just, it's absurd, right? You get people so worked up. I feel like companies would do better just to not address it and just, so okay, whatever, delete the tweet, move on. You don't have to. What's DeFranco always says, I don't have to address every barking dog as I'm driving down the street. Like, just do your thing, and you give the outrage culture too much power.
Absolutely. I mean, the right response is to not make the fire worse by jumping in there and taking drastic action. You got to realize that these swells are manufactured in social media. It's free content, right? It's free content for streamers, YouTubers, everybody else, Tumblr bloggers, and they're going to push it, but it's a temporary swell. People
Yeah,
have
super
short
short.
memories.
Yep.
And what you got to do is acknowledge it. If you want to apologize, I don't think that's the right approach, depending on what it is. Go ahead and apologize. If you have a problem internally with someone who said something wrong on social media, treat it as an HR problem. Don't fire the guy and make that a public thing. What are we? Are we back to public lynchings? What's going on here?
Yeah, that really funny story is I hired that guy anyway. So happy ending.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, but I mean, yeah, I don't, and the thing is, like, let's if we can continue down this road, because I know that it's interesting to, well, it's interesting to me, and I guess I'm being selfish, but I don't think people should be fired for misstep. They should be coached. And look, if you misuse a hashtag, even if you buy that he didn't know that it was, whatever, okay, fine. Just, you don't have to give them blood every time they ask. And I stand by this even for people I strongly dislike. For example, there's one question I have for you, and this is kind of also on the same politics thing. Where do you think this, maybe it's just more available now, but there's been a couple of instances this summer where game company employees, and honestly, actually, I'm going to look up the question as I wrote it because it's better than I'm going to formulate it here. So, boomer moment there. Okay, so what are your thoughts on the sometimes combative nature of developers or game company employees against the fandom, and what are your thoughts on having a social media policy?
Boy, that is a tough thing for a corporation these days, social media policy. But here's what I would say: don't attack your customers. That's never right. When your game is failing, when your book is failing, when your movie is failing, you know what? Take your lumps. Learn from it. Customers are not entitled. We're just in an era where you get to hear from them. Before, what would happen is these people would be just as angry, but there was no way that you'd ever hear from them. There was no social media, so you would just see sales drop, and you wouldn't know why. Well, you have a gift now. You know why sales are dropping. It's
Yeah.
all over the internet. Why aren't you using this instead of turning around and saying, no, it is the customers who are wrong?
Yeah,
And
right.
not only are they wrong, they are shit stains upon the earth, and we must shun them.
Yeah, if you don't like it, don't buy it, right?
That is the worst thing you can do. That is
They'll
the
never come
worst thing you
back.
can do.
They'll never
And
come
it
back.
keeps happening. And it keeps happening. It's like, okay, Harvard Business School, let's make this a case study, because we'll give you 15, 20 examples where that's the worst thing you can do. And in fact, in games, what's interesting is ignoring political outcry and taking a stance and saying, no, we understand where politics differ, but this is creatively where we are, and this is a fictitious universe, has actually helped sales in every case that I've seen them do that. So I think the business books, the business schools need to be teaching something different on that, because what they're churning out now is attack the customer, which I don't know is the strangest logic I've ever heard and the absolute worst thing you can do. But I will say this: go easy on the devs. It is hard, and most devs have no PR training and no armor. They're a lot of us are geeks, right? We're sensitive souls. You put us out there in social media and start flaming us, you know what? You're going to get people grow resentment and be hurt, like literally just I remember the first time I had to go through the trial by fire, I literally had to go out for walks in the park and touch a fucking tree. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is real.
I've been
Twitter is
there.
not real.
Yeah.
It's but go easy, go easy on the devs. Make your point.
Well, I
Don't
think
it?
I think that at least when I do videos, for example, I'm never trying to point out a particular dev. Now, I will use an example. Well, there was one female who was fired this summer for specifically attacking the fandom, and so I will respond in kind. But I don't see developers themselves take a lot of heat unless they kick the hornet's nest. Then, and I agree that. Plus, I don't like when it gets personal. Even game journalists that I don't like. I don't like when people get personal, because that just gives. First of all, it's a dick move, but second of all, it just gives them more ammo to say that gamers are toxic, or that we're entitled.
Exactly. Unless the dev or the creator is going out and on Twitter and calling you a shithead, keep it to the keep your shots to the game and the company. And you know what? Go ahead, be vicious, because it's a product and it's a
Hi.
company. It's not a human being who may or may not be trained in how to deal with this. But if that developer is going out and their reaction is to go and attack customers, that should definitely be in your company's social media policy, because that is a bad business move, and it's also it really shows that that particular creative or dev does not understand gamers, and if they're that angry about it, they should not be in the industry, because they're not going to do their best work. They're not going to do their best
Andy.
work. It's time for them to find another outlet.
Sorry, my dog was barking there. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't understand where that logic comes from. Chat wanted to ask, as you've been around, have you seen any major changes in how games journalism operates in current year versus maybe how it was back when you were at during when the WoW's initial launch? I see a lot in my. I think what they're alluding to is, we see a lot of activism masked as games journalism, and I guess I haven't been paying attention as long as maybe you have. Has it always been that way, or has there been a shift?
Oh, there's a definite shift. It used to be all about the games, but what happened was, I this is my personal analysis of the situation, just following the trends, the ad buys, and everything else. What happened was people started running ad blocker. People started getting cynical about game journalism matching their taste compared to watching a streamer or YouTuber where they can actually see the gameplay. And even if that streamer's saying, "Oh, I'm having such a great time," if they're looking at the gameplay and it's obviously ass, they can make their own opinion from that. But and so you get a direct feedback loop that's starting to take customers away from print and from especially web, and you've got people running ad blocker and the money's drying up there. You need the eyeballs. You've got to show your advertisers the traffic. It's a vicious circle. What do? You start writing clickbait. You start writing things that are sensationalism. You start trying to nerd bait. You start trying to do anything you can to get views, to drive ads, so that you can keep your job. And so when you have a failing business model and desperate people willing to do desperate things, and then the pay starts going through the floor, and now a lot of web journalists aren't even paid. They're doing this you're going to get a lot of people in there that that are encouraged to write this sort of stuff, because it does get views, right?
That
It
is
gets
such.
views.
That is. I mean, dude, that is such a valid point. I can't believe. I'm pissed that I've never. I'm gonna just steal it. Well, forget the 4,500, 4,600 people I heard you say it
Don't
for.
just steal it, spread it around. The
Yeah,
people need to understand what's happening.
yeah. It didn't really occur to me that it was like That's exactly it, right? I mean, if people stop caring about your genuine, like just the facts, which is kind of what I care about, but now I get it other places. I get it from YouTube. Honestly, like I get most of my news from YouTube. If I'm like covering something, it's because I'm interested in it for the most part. And so then ad block, it did hurt a lot of YouTubers, but not in the same way that it hurt a lot of these media outlets that relied on impressions and clicks. And you can see it when you go to these like second tier websites. I won't name names, but holy crap, are there ads? There's like 7 ads on one above the fold on one page. And it's getting to the point where it's like, man, now I'm definitely not going to come back. So they're just accelerating their own death.
If you invested your life, even the old school journalists, if you invested your life to being a games journalist professional, and we would take journalists to parties, right? This is no secret, and like we would throw a party at a castle and invite journalists and fly them out. And at the time, you didn't have to disclose. You should have to disclose. Um, and you were sort of the go-to person for when there was a PR issue that you wanted help with. You felt important. You felt you were plugged into the game industry as a game journalist professional. But now you're seeing, look at what Blizzard said recently, that they're targeting influencers, in specifically streamers and YouTubers.
Did you?
Right?
Somebody asked me. I know you're referencing the perfect article. I don't know if you saw that guy. He was a WoW Classic streamer. He asked me to get your thoughts about that.
It's the right thing to do,
Yeah, wouldn't
as
it? I
long
mean,
as
it's
there's
great, right?
disclosure. I called it years ago. I said this is the way it's going, and we were one of the first to do it. And meanwhile, both my board of directors and my marketing team wanted to spend 10 times more buying banner ads and celebrity endorsements. And I'm not
That's how that
talking
worked out
YouTube
for
celeb.
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, no, you've got to go to the streamers. Blizzard's being very smart about that. That is a marketing department that actually gets it. And now, and what? They're a little late. They're a couple years behind the curve still. They didn't, but every marketing department understands what used to be ridiculous. Like when I would say to my marketing team, we're going to go YouTube and Twitch, they would be like, what a fucking waste of time. We should buy banner ads. But now it's common wisdom that you should do that. So I'm not surprised to see Blizzard say this. It's the very smart thing to do. You do have to disclose it. But so bringing it back to the traditional game journalists, look at yourself. You invested your career in this, and they're hiring shit writers because they can't pay them anymore because the business doesn't have money, and you see yourself churning out clickbait when you probably didn't want to get in the industry for that. And now you're seeing that who's getting all the perks, the parties, the swag, and everything else? Who's getting that first before you? The YouTubers and the streamers.
Yep.
No wonder they hate them so much. No
That
wonder they go out of their way to attack them,
dude, that
because
is a
this has
great
become
point, man.
personal.
That's exactly right. Well, and if you could look at, from YouTube, from a overhead perspective, I'm literally in my basement and there's almost a 500,000 people a day that are watching my videos. I mean, how can a big media outlet conglomerate ever compete with that? And it's just that's another really great point, is that I was talking about you know a certain games journalist this morning. I was covering it. I was like, man, he just really hates YouTubers. And I talked about it. It's like they look at, like you said, they look at it. They're making way more money than they are, I'm assuming. They're getting better perks. They're getting, flown out to all this stuff. And these, legacy media, games journalism is just flailing.
Yeah, you know what? My heart goes out to the game journalists that are in it for game journalism, but their business model is failing. The ones that have turned bitter and start attacking people, I have no sympathy for. But it's tough when your industry changes around you and you can't adapt because maybe you don't have a streaming personality. I mean, that's fucked up, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that really sucks. And so that is a terrible situation to be in. And it's not just people, it's the companies, the media companies that are in here, and they're making some really bad calls. They're making some bad calls to go with clickbait headlines and flash traffic, which may solve the problem in the short run and keep you alive a little longer. But you need to evolve. You need to adapt.
Yeah, and I agree with you that I do. And Chat made a point to call them bloggers, not journalists, and I think that's a fair point for many of them that write for these sites. But I do feel bad for the ones that were pure, the ones that remain tainted. But I think that's a really small number, because if they were good and they had a personality that they could stream or do YouTube, they probably already are. And if they're just really good at writing articles, unfortunately, there's not that many places left for them.
They should become novelists. Independent publishing, self-publishing is getting to be viable and profitable for. I've talked to a lot of authors that gone that route. If you've got writing skills and the game journalists should shift. Like I said, if you have become so embittered that you're attacking the very audience you write for, do yourself a favor, change industries so you can do your best work.
Yeah, yeah. Could you imagine going to work every day and just be like, I have to serve these people I hate? It's just, I think you're right, and that self-publishing is legit. And you see a lot of even like legacy YouTubers have books that they put out, and there are big YouTubers that put up books, and you work on that. You put out a book a year, and you're doing fine. I'm gonna give you like a 5-minute break. By the way, Mark came on. He has been very sick, and he's been talking nonstop for almost 90 minutes now. So shout out to Mark. Follow him on Twitter. His handle is on the screen or in the description. I'm gonna read through some of these tips if you want to grab a drink or hit the head or something.
I'm gonna take a minute here, and then I'm happy to come back. This has been a great stream, and I'm happy to talk some more.
Okay, cool. All right, so
be back soon.
All right, so I'm gonna read through. By the way, thank you everyone for being here. This has been awesome, and Mark shared a lot of really great insight. And I'm gonna separate the ones out that are just pure questions from Mark, and I'm gonna ask him your questions. I'm trying to keep up with chat. You guys are going ham, but I appreciate it. Mark knows a lot of shit, and he's not a shill. And as you can see, he isn't afraid to speak his mind. So let's see. Diablo 2. Okay, so we asked about WoW 2. We asked about why he left. That was a great story, right? How far in advance do they write the story in WoW? I'll ask him when he gets back. Blizzard built their company off ripped Games Workshop IP, so I won't cry as watch their ship sinks and their developers starve for the Emperor. Jake, bringing the heat. Milwaukee represent. Kite the Windblade for $10. Mark, do you have any thoughts on the constant retcons of the WC2 era orcs into the noble savage trope and Blizzard basically pretending like they were never evil? Whoa, okay. No more Jesus. Okay, I'll ask him that. What do you think of the WoW token, and if it's in Classic, wouldn't that ruin the game from the jump? I'll ask him that. Reginald McIntosh, Jesus, $50. Thank you. Glad I got here to hear this live. Excellent guest, Handley. Don't really have a question. Just want to show my support. Keep the content coming. I will. Promise you that. Moss Maestro, what is your favorite storyline from all the Blizzard games? My favorite is Arthas Downfall. Don't like what the latest game has gone by story-wise. I'll ask him that when he gets back. Can Blizzard do anything to reestablish trust? That's a good question for him. Question for Mark. Should streamers be anywhere in the discussion concerning game design? Should their input matter? I think he answered that he believes they should, right? Does Mark have any thoughts on StarCraft Ghost? Okay, I'll wait for him. I'm like, oh, I'll just pound through these, and they're all questions for Mark. Suppose I should buy him a steak dinner or something, huh? I'll get him something. Oh, okay, he's back. Okay, Mark. I thought I was going to be able to pound through all these, but they're all questions for you. So... so we'll go through them, and I know we've allotted about 20 more minutes, so I want to get through them if we can. So we'll go through these. How far in advance do they write the story in WoW?
I don't know about now, but we were seat of the pants. It was getting written as the dungeons were being made.
So on the fly.
It was on the fly, and it got to the point where it gained its own momentum, and the quest writers would have to go and write stuff, and they were given a lot of freedom. Metzen gave them a lot of freedom to write, as long as they got the names filtered. All names had to go through Metzen in order to maintain the flavor. But we were at breakneck speed, so not very far in advance at all. In fact, after we shipped WoW, we thought Naga was going to be the first expansion. We
Chad
thought
knew it.
with we were going to do Under the Maelstrom, we're going to do Underwater City, we're going to do Naga. We were all psyched for that. It's never happened.
So then the next question is, Mark, do you have any thoughts on the constant, this is a deep lore question, I think, or this is a WoW specific, constant retcons of WC2 era orcs into the noble savage trope, and Blizzard basically pretending they were never evil. Hashtag no more Horde Jesus.
I don't like retconning. I heard that they're going to retcon War 3's Reforged story to fit the WoW stuff more. I've never been a fan of that. If you're gonna treat a classic game like Warcraft 3, do it in that style, because that's who your audience is. That's who's buying the game. And plus, it feels wrong. I think I wasn't on the War 3 team, but I think it would feel wrong if I was on the original War 3 team to have the lore changed. Um, so I think out of respect for the team and out of respect for the gamers who loved that game, I don't think you need to retcon it. Again, I think you get a case where, and this happened at Blizzard even when I was there, key creatives leave and new creatives, they want to do their thing, right? They're stuck on a franchise that they didn't make, but they want to make it their own. I can't blame them for that, but
I
I
can.
don't think
Look what
it's
they've done to
I don't think
Marvel.
it's Oh, I don't know comics at all, but I follow some of that stuff and I read some of your tweets about it, and wow, that sounds that yeah. So maybe in that sense, it's like yeah, it's like I can't fault the motivation, but I don't think it's good business, and I don't think it treats your gamers well. Leave the story alone, please.
Fair enough. Yeah. What do you think of the WoW token? And if it's in Classic, wouldn't that ruin the game from the jump?
All right, WoW tokens after my time. Someone explain this to me.
I don't know what it is either, so I'll watch chat. We'll come back to that. What's your Moss Maestro says? What's your favorite storyline from all? You're like a celebrity in here, Mark. It's been great. I hope that you're not falling too sick over there. You don't get extra sick. But the what's your favorite storyline from all the Blizzard's games? My favorite is Arthas Downfall. Don't like the latest games have gone story wise.
Oh, okay. Confession time. I'm not a big Warcraft lore fan. I, in fact, the whole team when they started, when we were first booting the team, didn't know the story of Warcraft. So I made the whole team play through Warcraft 1 and 2 and all the expansions so that they understood what they were writing and what they were making. Um, to me, my favorite lore has always been StarCraft 1. And like I said, I didn't keep up with StarCraft 2 because I kind of rage quit when I hit that level. I wouldn't have shipped. But StarCraft 1, I loved. And I especially loved the partnership between, it wasn't just Metzen writing, the other person voicing the characters' dialogue, particularly, was James Finney, who went on to design Guild Wars 1 and some other titles. I think he and Metzen really made something special there, especially with the dialogue of how the Zerg sound, how the Terran sounded, and how the Protoss sound. That voicing was really the special thing that Finney brought. And then he was referencing the Bible for how the Zerg would speak. He would go Old Testament and read that and bring that in. Metzen would have the epic story arcs and stuff, and then James would come in and polish up dialogue with him and things. I thought that was a great combo, and I really loved the story of StarCraft 1. And and when you've got Warcraft and you started getting Thrall being Jesus Thrall, that sort of turned me off. I have to admit, I'll just be upfront.
Fair enough. That's wholesome. So somebody asked, so they explained what the token was, that you can buy. Players can buy gold from other players with real money. WoW token is paying $20 for gold or selling gold for 1 month sub.
Oh yeah, so that's like the Eve pilot license. We looked at that extensively too for some other games. That's usually a mechanism that lets the hardcore players play for free. And we thought that that was a good thing. So, is there a problem with it? Is there a controversy that I'm not aware of? Because I actually think that that's good for the
No,
hardcore player
they
and
were
good for
just
the
the
casual.
question was just yeah, what you thought about it and if it would ruin things in WoW Classic.
Well, I don't think it'll ruin things in WoW Classic. But I think WoW Classic it's under one sub, and my prediction is that Classic players are going to play both. I think that they're not just going to stick to Classic because Classic has a content ramp that isn't there yet. They're going to play Classic and then they're going to stick around and play retail until Classic keeps going. And I read a recent Gamma Sutra article about how Classic was just doomed because there's no new content that's coming out for it. It has to stay frozen in time. Who says it has to stay frozen in time? I don't see that's not the way I would do it at all. The way I would do it, and you can look at RuneScape for this. They did it very successfully, and thank you for my fans for pointing that out. I learned a lot from that. Is they went ahead and they did additional expansions for their classic version of the game, and you can do that with WoW too. We could take all the content from Burning Crusade and everything else, or after Burning Crusade because people really love that expansion, and it was still true to the WoW classic flavor. Use those assets, but redo the content, or even split the storyline. I think that's fine with that. You can have a parallel storyline arc there. It's like, what if classic had remained classic? And as long as you stay true to the guiding principles and philosophies of classic that maximize socialization, that give you a sense of achievement. I won't say difficulty. Give you a sense of achievement for investing more skill and time and gameplay into it, and get rid of things like flying, and make the world feel immersive again. Keep the slow pace. Keep the 2-on-1 mob balance that we had back then, where two mobs were only supposed to were supposed to be the most you can handle, and you escape with about 50% of your health. Write these rules down, write these philosophies down, and grow that content along those directions. That's what I would do with it.
Perfect. And I'm just going to grab these last two here, and then I want to kind of bring things back and summarize what we talked about, and end on that so that everyone's on the same page about the pay controversy and things like that. The last two, I'll read them to you here. I guess we'll see how your time goes here, but the first question is: should streamers be anywhere in the discussion for concerning game design? And the other question I see here is: does Mark have any thoughts on StarCraft Ghost and why it didn't get finished?
Oh yeah. Um, all right. First question: should streamers influence game design? Well, it depends on the aspect of game design. I think for any game to be successful, it should stream well now. There should be moments that are entertaining from a spectator mode. And we talked about this even in WoW back when we were making the game, and there were a lot of game rooms in Asia, and the majority of gameplay took place in these game rooms. We said we wanted WoW to have older, over the shoulder appeal. So if you're walking through a net cafe and you look over the shoulder of someone playing WoW, you go, hey, I want to play that game. So, yeah, in that sense, streamers should actually absolutely weigh in and tell us what would be helpful to give us that over shoulder appeal, to make it entertaining to not just play but to watch, because you can do both. One is not sacrificing one thing for the other, I believe. But should streamers be dictating hardcore game mechanics? It depends on the streamer, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. What about the StarCraft?
Ghost is interesting. I loved Ghost as an internal project. It was it was about to be canceled, and I said, "Listen, let's find a dev for it." And I helped revive the project internally, and I found a company to go do it. The company that did Vampire the Masquerade, the first one,
White Wolf?
and no, not the tabletop game, the video game.
Oh, okay.
Not, was it Nihilistic? I
Boy,
forget. I forget
that's
the
a
company
deep
name,
lore question. Chat will tell us, I'm
but
sure.
But in any case, I really wanted to see that game come about. But and I even wrote like an intro for that game that I wanted to see happen, where Nova's having to assassinate somebody that she didn't quite want to. And anyways, I really wanted to see that game. And why didn't it happen? Because this sucks with consoles. Blizzard used to take so long. Blizzard's dev cycle never matched console release cycles, and this hurt us on StarCraft 64. And because Nintendo 64 was discontinued before it shipped effectively. We were end of life there, and we had just come off that, and now Ghost was starting to reach end of life on Xbox. So it's like, oh crap. It's like, should this continue to be an investment? Do we have time to get the Blizzard polish and quality in there? Also, there was a big, and I think rightfully true, not invented here syndrome in Blizzard, where third party developers were never seen as being able to absorb the Blizzard philosophy enough to do the game on their own. And if they didn't do it on their own, then our top guys would have to be helping to manage that. And if they were managing that, they weren't on their key projects internally. So there was a division of attention issue too. So those two things killed Ghost. There was a division of attention where the top people at Blizzard who understood the potential of Ghost could not dedicate their time to it. The external team did not have the Blizzard values or quality bar that we were after, but they were a good team. Just different philosophies, right? Different cultures, and end of life on the console cycle. All those things were kind of like the perfect storm to kill Ghost.
Okay, one last one, and then I want to let people know that I'm going to stick around after Mark has to leave and answer questions and stuff like that. But Adam Blythe asked, and this is a fair question that I want to get your take on. Blizzard said that their best developers are now working on mobile games. We saw this in their shareholders meeting. This means that BFA got the B team, which probably is why it was so broken when it came out. Ask Mark if I'm wrong to make this connection and what he thinks about it.
I don't think we can read too much into that. I think when wasn't that the conference where Alan was not happy?
Yeah, it was. Do you think he was saying like
probably
top men in like a marketing sense?
I think what he was trying to do, like, listen, and this is complete speculation. Okay, can we go into speculation land?
Oh, we live there, man. Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
So this is probably has maybe a 2% chance of being true. But what if
you heard it here? Confirmed fact.
What if because I'm talking about how the tough situation that Blizzard is in politically within the Activision Blizzard family. You have soft revenues. You don't have a major announcement at BlizzCon for a major title to your core. You have flagging numbers. You have a change of CEO. These things make you very vulnerable to, say, corporate takeover. And if Alan is feeling that and Blizzard's feeling that, and he just got out of a PR mistake where the audience was booing Blizzard, he's going to be defensive. He said several times, Blizzard has a bright future. There are things you don't know about. We are working on a multitude of titles. There's cool shit coming down the line. He's probably thinking about the investors, and he's probably thinking about, hey, we've got our best people on the products here, but we also have our best people on these other things. But the investors want to hear that mobile's going to go good because guess what? The audience just booed mobile. Right?
Yeah.
So maybe he's coming at it from that mental point of view. And if he's coming at it from that mental point of view, he's not talking to you, the gamer, in a moment of defensiveness and emotion. He's laying out a corporate message to Asia and the investors saying, don't worry, we got this. And so at the same time, it inadvertently alienates the rest of us, or we take that statement and we read a lot into it.
Or it could be. Yeah, speculation is fine as long as it's led with, hey, this is a speculative thought. So to go back to summarize you're welcome to stay longer. I'm sure the chat would have you, but you've already given me 2 hours of your time. So, but I do want to summarize. I think where we ended up on was, as more information came out, it sounds like perhaps a ranty moment of a highly regarded person was misguided, and that while compensation has changed, it's more fair across the board. However, still working QA is super rough. Is that fairly summarized?
I think so. I think as more information has come to light, because I shared the same concerns as everybody else and you, about, whoa, what's really going on here at Blizzard after Dave's rant came out. It appears that the profit sharing program is intact, and like I said, that is the litmus test of whether Blizzard still got it in terms of independence from Activision. That it's just fairer overall, and that the Christmas bonus has not been erased. It's been folded into base pay. People seem happy with that, but we do have a problem with QA and support. And Orange County is ridiculously expensive for a call center. So that needs to be that's if I were Blizzard CEO, that'd be the first thing I address. One thing we didn't touch on is it is true what you heard about Blizzard offering slightly lower salaries to people who have come from other industries or even in the same industry. So I want to say that's true, but it's not that drastic because once you factor in the bonuses and the profit sharing program, you actually do better. And that's historically always been true. Maybe it's changed now. I don't know. But historically, it's always been worth the trade off. We just never could tell people who were coming in how much more it would be because that was proprietary information, but we would just assure them it's like, hey, yeah, because we want you to have skin in the game, we want you to care about the outcome of the products of our company.
Yeah,
And
that's always a
we'll
trade-off
be
with
better off.
bonuses too. I mean, you could say, well, last year this is what people got paid, but you can't really. It's unethical to promise anything up front.
Yeah, we would never promise. We would just say that, hey, the bonuses are healthy, and you can do quite well. And the pay cuts that people were taking back in my day were on the offers that we were making was about 10-15%. So, um, you know, did we use the Blizzard brand and panache? Well, remember, we weren't quite as big back then. I mean, we were like a shining jewel, but we weren't like mega corp or anything like that. Yeah, we did use the brand because we wanted the best people. But I think we were fair. I think we were very upfront about this with people. And I don't think anyone felt strong armed into it. And the people, and when you came on board, people were happy with the level of compensation, once you factored everything in.
Chad is saying Titan a lot. What's that about?
Oh, Titan. Titan was
Last story I'll make him tell.
Titan was Blizzard's next MMO, right? And they've said as much. This is nothing. I'm not saying anything that isn't public information. Titan, or revealed by others. Titan was going to be the next MMO for WoW, because WoW doesn't believe in sequels. So let's do a sci-fi version, right? So they were going to do this game, and they were having, and I was talking to the team lead at the time, and I said, I don't envy you at all because it's like after the success of WoW, no idea that's thrown out sounds good enough. And you've got to be, chaotically throwing stuff at the wall, but none of it, because it's not playable yet. You can't see it, and you're in the new genre. Nothing compares to WoW, and you've got to be second guessing yourself all the time. And so I think that's what happened. That eventually that all that second guessing, all the turmoil of should we do this or that, nothing is ever going to be good enough to be as good as WoW. How do we ever top this? Is what really killed the project in a meandering way. And of course, the assets and everything else and the code got rolled over into Overwatch, which was a great success at the time.
Fair enough. So I know you mentioned I offered Mark many times that I would happily promote whatever he might be working on. But chat is asking what you're up to these days. If you want to share it, if you prefer not to, that's okay too. But I just want to give you one more chance to shill something.
Thank you. Like I told you before, it's like I believe this topic is a serious topic. We're talking about industry stuff. It's not the type of stream where I want to shill because that takes away from, I think, the gravitas of what we're discussing.
Sure.
So what I asked for is like, hey, just follow my Twitter. It's Grums on Twitter. It's right there on the screen. Follow my Twitter, and if you want to know what I'm up to, I'm there. Yes, I am still making games. So I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. And I will say, Mark, you've been an absolute home run on the stream. This is the biggest stream we've ever done. The chat is loving you. You're getting people in the mood to play all sorts of games, StarCraft, and people are just saying that they love the conversation and they love the reminiscing. And I'm very thankful that you came on, and hopefully maybe you'll come on again with less of a heavy topic. It's clear that you are passionate about the industry and that you are concerned for um, the developers and people at all levels of the companies, and that's definitely admirable.
Well, yeah, I definitely wanted to come on and help, round out the issue because there's so much there was so much out there that and it was like I said, everything you said was true, but I think we were able together to add a lot of color and context to this so that people could make a more informed opinion about what's going on at Blizzard. And that's really what I wanted to try to accomplish today. And with your help, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity to do that. And I think we've achieved it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stick around. You're welcome to hop off. There's still some open questions and folks, and so I'm gonna make sure I get all those and
Yep.
dance around here.
I do have to go, unfortunately.
No, that's all
Thanksgiving
right.
holidays here. I do have family and stuff to attend to, and of course, my own business stuff. But this has been great. I love reconnecting with gamers. There was a time where I was really disconnected from gamers, and the past 3 years, I've just been completely reconnected, and being on streams like this helps make that possible. Luckily, I have a thick skin and I have PR training, so I can field the hard questions. I don't get offended, and I do try to speak from the heart. So, thank you very much for having me. I hope the rest of your stream goes good, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from gamers.
All right. Well, hey, we've got thousands waiting for you anytime you want to come back.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All
All
right.
right,
Bye.
take care.
All right. That was pretty spicy. I thought that was very good, huh? What are your thoughts? Mark crushed it, didn't he? I'm gonna try to, and Mark and I have had many conversations in private too. So I'll try to answer some of the questions what I think he would answer. Um, you were all very generous. Um, let's see. This has been the best discussion you've had on this channel in a long time. Keep it up, and you might get to the point where you don't need super chats to keep you afloat. Hey, very thankful in the meantime, but also thank you. Yeah, the super chats are very helpful in the days, in these times, in this space. But yeah, damn, that was awesome. Gawker's death rattle. SJW activists masquerading as journals accept wokeness points for competition when there's insufficient money to hire actual journalists. I 100% agree with you. Now, maybe not all, but as you said, the SJW activists, the woke journalists do. Paid the $5 to say F-U-C-K Hillary. That wasn't necessarily a shot at Hillary, but it was a good example of what buying Hollywood does for you. It really doesn't mean anything anymore these days. There was a time that it did. Those days are gone. Gets better ratings than CNN in his basements. Probably do. By the way, if you haven't liked the video, please do, because I'm just going to let it go live so people can immediately watch it. So I think it'll help if everybody interacts with it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. That's okay too. I will continue to investigate. By the way, I do believe Mark to be a very honest actor. I believe everything he has said has been in good faith. But there are things that continue to flow into my inbox that are worth investigating, and this won't be just kind of the okay, well, it's not as bad. There are plenty of issues still that need to be investigated. Some emails I got today. Don't worry if you missed it, because it'll go live on the channel when it's done processing. Victor Angelo, the hive mind have no logical processes or common sense. That's very true. John's Crib for $20, no comment. Thank you. Rubber dinosaurs and other landfill material. Classic WoW is garbage compared to the closed Nostralius private server. I want it back, Mark. Let him know on Twitter. Devolution of games as a corporation are competing in microtransactions instead of focusing to compete through graphics, gameplay, story, and innovation. I'd agree with that. I think Mark would as well, based on some of the other things he said. Should I wear a MAGA hat to Gen Con 2018? I think you should, if you want to, but know that you're going to be in an uncomfortable zone. Heavy Metal Scythe, most gamers would rather watch about a game than read about a game. I think that's true. I think those days have changed. Mark, you've got me in the mood to play StarCraft 1. I saw that. I wanted to let him know. Just a little off topic. Black Blades. Mark, if you ever looked into Unity, 3D, try and look up Atavism online, which is a pretty cool MMO plugin for Unity. You should tell him that on Twitter. Matthew Sung, couldn't have gotten a better interview. People need to know the industry, not people crafting story, real journalism, and good job. Shit, thank you. Yeah, I thought Mark was really classy. That I practically begged him to shill something, and he refused my every request. And I think that just shows that the dude is legit, and that I hope he comes on again. I definitely hope we get to see him again. I think he had a good time. Let him know if you did add him on Twitter that you appreciated him coming on, and I bet you he'll come back. Ember is the project, yeah. Diego Flores, Jeremy, how is the Warhammer collection coming? Wanted to ask a while ago. Well, it's still in the box. My hope is in December, we can get some spare time. Hopefully, I'm hoping. It's nuts because if I can share like a personal, not like too personal, but I will never quit my day job. I don't care. I saw some YouTuber today get retweeted about quitting their day job, and then I looked at their channel and they had like 80,000 or 90,000 subscribers. I'm like, oh my God, please don't. I think people that like quit their day job, they get bitter, and when things come and things go, that it's just not a good idea, I don't think. So I work all day at my day job, and then because I work from a home office, I can take, an hour here to quick make a video, an hour there to quick make a video. But you know what will happen as soon as I leave stream? I have to go back to work. I'm not hating about making a living off YouTube. I'm saying that I would advise against it because I see way too many people make a good living for 2 years, and then YouTube goes away, as it always does, and they're left with nothing. What is my day job? I run a search marketing agency, so I do like paid search advertising for clients. My day job, yeah, it's sitting at a desk, obviously. Yeah, I am saying just be smart about it. Just know that, YouTube is, when you have a great day, you have a great month, it's like thinking, oh my God, this is going to continue forever. And then things change. You can't stay ahead of the algorithm. You can't stay ahead of other kids coming up, better talent, better editing. You're just not going to ever be number one. Nobody's going to ever be PewDiePie again. It's just not going to happen. So not that you need to be PewDiePie to make a living on YouTube, but you need to be pretty consistently getting a couple 100,000 views every single video. And, it's just, I wish them the best, but I'm nervous for them because I don't want them to go broke. Being a YouTuber is not sustainable income. If you can make it rich quick with 100,000 subs, then fine, but it's not going to last forever. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and then you got to get back into the workforce, and you haven't done anything. Your interview was a proper interview. Would you tune into something like this? Oh, would tune into something like this and actually had substance. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you guys are always welcome to let me know who. Mark was also a great guest, I thought. I thought he handled himself really well. I thought he answered very passionately. He was, he's just a great guest. Great guest on the show. What do I do for a day job? You can see Colt. Colt's right here. I do. So basically, when you see, I don't do like pop-up ads or anything like that. When you see ads on Google, for example, like paid search ads, and you search for something, you see paid search ads. That's what I do. Little guy, little guy, little guy. So, yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, the interview is going to go up as soon as we're done. So, I just wanted to give. I wanted to. Everyone was fucking super generous, and I wanted to make sure I got to everybody's super chats, and I wanted to properly thank you. Um, that cat has a lot of winter fur. Yeah, yeah. It's got his winter weight on. Can you interview Jason Schreier? Hell no. He'd love to have this platform. Indy went upstairs. Jordan B. Peterson. Maybe I could line that up. I mean, I do have friends that know him. EVS did his illustrations for his book, and Sargon knows him, so maybe I can hook that up. Summary. Okay, sure. We talked about the Brevik basically coming out and saying, "Wow, they've slashed the pay of everybody," which I covered. And I think that as more information came out, it would appear that he was incorrect. And so I think maybe it's worth putting up an update video tomorrow, because I think in terms of integrity, I think it's worth correcting. I think that's what I think Mark would appreciate that, even though he doesn't work there anymore. We talked about basically, that this pay cut happened at the executive level and wasn't necessarily, top down, and that it still does suck to be in QA. I think that's probably worth talking about. And that would probably be it. Sorry, I sounded so effeminate. He does, yeah. I mean, it was hard for me to not kind of like take jabs like that in the video, but so everybody what they did is they rolled it into a higher base pay. However, I guess we don't really have. I'm sure after this interview, I'll have a bunch of emails from Blizzard employees. I know there are Blizzard people watching for sure. I saw that stream vid. David said 2 to 3 times he was very drunk and would go to bed. I thought he was drunk. But I didn't know that, and I didn't want to accuse him of that. So what I said was he might have been feeling it. Quartering, are you even a bit sorry for exposing us to those ads? Well, I'll tell you what, I only run ads on Google and YouTube, so my clients run ads on YouTube videos. So I'm helping. I'm doing my part. I have one client that spends about $3 million a month on YouTube. Simple Sam, I just found your channel last night. I'm totally loving your content. Thanks for your hard work. Thank you for $5. Alex Sensual, $5. Thoughts on H3 these days? Did you watch that guy's video that reached a few 100,000 views going off in it for an hour and a half? I started to watch it. A friend of mine sent it to me. I will talk about H3 if you guys want me to, but thank you for going the extra mile for us gamers. Jace, I can't speak for everyone, but I really appreciate it. You're awesome. Thank you. Well, I do feel a sense of, I want to protect fandom, and that starts with Magic the Gathering. That's kind of where I got kind of that. That's why I started to feel that way. It's because of the Magic community coming in, people coming in and destroying it. H3, I think, I've even done a video on him. I think that um you know I don't know if I can say anything that hasn't already been said about him, but he's not acting normal. um he's acting like, well, somebody who, let's say, I could say he's acting a lot like um these bitter game journalists who used to love games. He seems bitter. Uh, it's he seems bitter and frustrated that he's maybe not making the same money he once did, and that's very obvious to the fandom. And I think that he could have just been honest with everybody and said, like, yo, we work our ass off on these videos. They get demonetized. Doing the podcast is just easier. So that's what we're going to do. I think you'd have an initial wave of outrage, but people would have gotten along with it, gotten okay with it. I find their podcast extremely boring. I find Ethan to be suboptimal at interviewing people, and he hasn't gotten any better in over a year. He's not taking it seriously. He's just getting making money. So, the podcast is boring as fuck. Boring. And they ran out of famous guests to bring on. And I think that they just got bitter. At least Ethan got bitter. And everyone could tell. And that's kind of it. The money thing is probably part of it, but, Joe, I like Joe. We agree politically, but I trust his opinions on video games. It's just like Jim Sterling. I mean, Jim Sterling is far left ideologue, but I don't let that deter me from his opinions on video games, because I think they're most often pretty solid. And it's easy. I mean, I still watch Jim Sterling and Angry Joe. Just because I disagree with them politically doesn't mean their content's not good. I love that meme. That's my all-time favorite meme. It really is. Don't let this distract you from the fact that in 1966, Al Bundy scored 4 touchdowns in a single game while playing for the Polk High School Panthers in the 1966 City Championship game. Well, I think well, I guess I can answer a few. You guys want me to answer a few more questions? What's your opinion on a large company merger, and if Activision has their fingers in WoW dev? It didn't sound like they really do. It sounds like WoW makes enough money that they stay out of it. I would liken this to probably this situation with like Hasbro and Magic the Gathering. I think for a long time, Wizards of the Coast is just printing money, so Hasbro hasn't really gotten involved. And then when they stopped printing money, then they got in and got involved. And I think that's the issue. How many hours do you work a day in your day job? Between YouTube and my day job, I work probably 14 hours a day. 13 hours, 14 hours. But my work is not physically taxing, Steam and Valve, what's your opinions on possible crossplay? Between what? Why does Blizzard hire SJWs? It's clear that they have a hold on them. Well, I think what happens is simple. They had this kind of culture war that happened that we lost, that normal people lost to the crazy people. And then they hired their friends. It's just nepotism, right? SJWs hire other SJWs, and now you have a huge encampment of them. What do you think about RTU? Dude's been going at it for a very long time. Consoles and PC, I don't know, because some games it totally makes sense. For example, maybe Rocket League or something. But I mean, you can't really compare using a joystick against a mouse and keyboard in like a shooter, right? You would get wrecked. I have a phone. Yeah, I've never played a game on my phone ever. I don't think I've ever played a game on my phone. I've never installed one. I've never updated Witcher casting. It's in the middle. It's the middle of the road. Vicious Victor T. Did you ever see the pics I sent you on Twitter of the warehouses of magic cards? I don't think so. Maybe email them to me. I never no Pokemon Go either. I don't think. I don't think so. I did did you teach yourself PPC? Well, I have a degree in marketing, but it's not like I learned anything about paid search there. And so I'm watching. I learned by doing. I started a shitty website that had an affiliate product on it, and then I learned how to do paid search that way. Did you hear about Blizzard having to play Diablo 4? He has to sell the play Diablo 4. Well, here's what's going to happen. He's going to give up the domain name. You know, it's I told you, Brandon. You know, it's oh shit, where did I go now? Paid search. Figured that out on my own over time. I lost a lot of money. I spent a lot of money to learn. Well, I think so what's going to happen is after Google filter bubble, there are good people who love social justice, want equality, and good environment. There are warriors. Yes, I agree with that. It's not like I hate all liberals. You know what I mean? I just don't like people that are fanatic on either side. Oh, the domain name. Thank you. They're going to have to give it up. Because what'll happen is the domain registrar will just seize it back. I mean, that's what... I mean, you've seen that happen with other domains. They just take it. Well, I think we're gonna... I didn't miss any chats. I want to thank everyone for all their generosity tonight. If you're coming in late, when this processes, it'll go live. So it'll be great. So everyone will see it. I may publish it in the morning so people can, I don't know. I'll figure out what happens. Sometimes it takes a few hours to publish, and we went on for almost 3 hours. You should run ads for Kotaku on your live streams. No. Thank you, everyone, for being here. If somebody else is streaming, if the Soy Father's streaming, go check it out. Somebody said the Boomer was stream stamping me. I assume that's Sargon. It's the best stream you've done. Thank you. Hope you guys had fun. I'm trying to do fewer streams, but better streams, you know? This was a good one for sure. Young went soft in his discussion. I think Young has bigger plans. I think he wants to be... He might want to get in with some of these industry people to help his channel. I mean, he did have a huge video go out today because he got something free from Bethesda. I will never get free shit from Bethesda because I am the way I am. But Young, given the professional approach that he has and his politeness... He'll do fine. He'll do great. I don't know much about Heroes of the Storm, to be honest with you. Did you see yourself having a discussion with... Do you see yourself having a discussion with Young on a live stream? I don't think he'll have me. But don't give him shit for it. Like, I understand why. I'm not mad about it. I've asked him several times publicly. He's never replied. I think that's his respectful way of saying, like, hey, you know, I don't want any of the trouble that maybe comes with you. And that's okay. It really is. I'm not mad about it. He'll learn. He'll learn. I think if you want to hitch your wagon to the type of people that Jason Schreier are, you're going to get burned. And I'll be here waiting for him with open arms. Well, that sucks. Well, I mean, I have people that, the people that call me alt-right, stuff like that, you know. Yeah, I'm probably gonna pack it up. I gotta eat some dinner, and I really hope you guys all had fun, and we'll see you again. Actually, the Incredible Salt Mine will be on tomorrow night. Count Dankula and Bering and I, 7 o'clock. So, Watsy asked for this at gmail.com. WOTC asked for this at gmail.com. If you have any thoughts, we'll see you on the Incredible Salt Mine tomorrow, which is more of a shit post, kind of a meme, fun stream. So we'll have lots of fun.